If I were to say, hey, let's talk about sexual consent, what would you say? Sexual consent is defined as a positive voluntary agreement to participate in a specified sexual activity, either verbally or non-verbally. Over the past decade, sexual consent has received increased media attention due to high-profile cases like Brock Turner and Brett Kavanaugh, as well as different campaigns like the hashtag #MeToo movement. It is through this increased media attention that digital communication scholars like myself can examine areas of online participation on social network sites for topics like sexual consent. To do this, I looked at Twitter to answer the following questions. What types of words, if any, are often used together in the conversation of sexual consent through tweets? How is the conversation occurring? Are individuals or organizations just stating facts, or are they requesting engagement from others, asking questions, sharing experiences, and more? How does this conversation change across sources? Specifically, does a nonprofit organization discuss consent differently than individuals? To answer these questions, I selected initial tweets for a 3-month period in 2016. Tweets were collected from either individual publicly available accounts or from a nonprofit campaign, Project Consent, aimed at combating rape culture. Tweets from individual accounts were selected using one of two prominent hashtags at the time, either hashtag consent is sexy or hashtag consent is simple. After using 3 independent coders to categorize the data, I then analyzed it and found some interesting results. When looking at the different word pairings that we could see together in the topic of sexual consent, we noticed that individuals didn't really have much in terms of word pairings together. But Project Consent did demonstrate certain keyword pairings with support and survivor, victim and blame, and rape and culture being the most prominent keyword pairings. When looking at how the conversation was occurring online, individuals were asking for questions or engagement with others, as well as stating information about consent. This differed from Project Consent, which predominantly used their tweets to state facts about what does and what does not constitute sexual consent. This online participation research on social media examining sexual consent is important, especially when looking at the societal shift of the time. This research can be used in terms of a coding framework to evaluate the evolving conversation of sexual consent in social media sites. Specifically, we can look at sites like Twitter using this coding framework to examine how we continue to communicate and educate about topics of consent to ensure their hashtags simple whenever anyone asks about them.